Hi guys, and welcome to episode 1 of the Transform Collective podcast. In this podcast, episode 1, I will talk you through all the things that you need to consider before deciding to use a GLP1 agonist. GLP1s are medications such as Ozempic, Mounjaro, etc. So, the introduction, the rise of GLP1 agonists. The hype around them, the GLP1 agonists were discovered and were used originally in the management of type 2 diabetes. When they started using them in diabetics, they started to discover how good they are for weight loss. Now, they've been approved for weight loss, but the weight loss they've been approved for is for severe cases. But like anything with weight loss, it filtered into normal pop culture, if you like. Celebrities have started using them. Celebrities that don't need them have started using them and basically giving themselves self-induced eating disorders. So hence the reason they're getting a bad reputation, because there are so many people out there using them that don't really need to be using them, or shouldn't really be using them in the first place. A prime example is of the case of the singer that's been all over social media, I forgot her name, but loads of people were sharing that she's just been diagnosed with osteoporosis and osteopenia. Now, the truth of the matter is, she had an eating disorder. She was signed to a record label, and the record label told her that she needed to lose more weight, so she started using Ozempic. Now, it's well documented that malnutrition causes weak bones, causes weakened immunity, causes frailty, causes all these things. Now, Mounjaro, Ozempic, GLP1 agonists in general, they are so good at being able to help you stay in a calorie deficit or a severe calorie deficit if you need to, that they will just exacerbate these problems in situations like that. Now, she wasn't the recommended case use for this. She was already at a healthy weight or even underweight if she had an eating disorder, and this has sped up. Using these drugs has sped up the inevitable of where she was heading anyway if she had an eating disorder, which would be bone disease, malnutrition, frailty. It is sad, but the reality is that that's not what these drugs are designed for. So it's no wonder in cases like that they're getting bad rep. So the reality is, for weight loss, and for people that need them for weight loss, or people that want to use them for weight loss, that are in the correct category anyway, they are not a magic bullet. They're not a quick fix. And if deciding to use them, then complete lifestyle change must be at the forefront of your mind. If you are using them just to remove your appetite and starve, then this is where the issues will occur. This is where the muscle loss will occur, the lean mass loss, the bone loss, the bone mineral density loss. This is where all these things occur, and it's all down to malnutrition. Now, if used properly in lower doses and with a view to complete lifestyle change, then these can be absolute game changers for people. So the goal with this episode is to explain as much about them as I possibly can. I've actually planned up a few episodes purely about, I'm gonna create a complete playlist on YouTube that's just all about GLP1s. So how do GLP1s work? So how do GLP1s work? GLP1s, as I say, are the class of drugs that Ozempic, Mounjaro, etc. belong to. Now, GLP1 stands for glucagon-like peptide 1 and mimics the action of the hormone GLP1, which stabilises blood sugar and regulates appetite. It also delays gastric emptying. Now, what that means is it slows down digestion. So when you eat, you're essentially fuller for longer. Now, this is where the issues could arise at high doses, because it slows that down to a point where there's a possibility of it causing issues. Now, people are just jumping right on that, says it causes stomach paralysis. It doesn't. At low doses and even not at low doses, in the research that's been done, it's a very, 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 very rare side effect. It can happen, but it's a very rare side effect. So they work by stimulating insulin secretion in response to meals. Now, when people have type 2 diabetes, their insulin signaling is off. So when they do eat, their body overproduces insulin all the time. So when they do eat, their body doesn't recognise the rise in blood sugar and the falls in blood sugar the way it should, because there's a constant secretion of insulin going on. And what happens there is the cells become resistant to insulin. So what happens in the case of insulin resistance is, in a healthy human, when you eat, your blood sugar will rise, mainly from carbohydrates, but all food sources, you'll get a rise in blood sugar. So when you eat, your blood sugar will rise. In a healthy human, your pancreas will secrete insulin to bring that blood sugar down. Now, it gets the blood sugar down by signalling to muscle cells, liver cells, that type of thing, to open up and let blood glucose in. Now, what happens in the case of insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes is your pancreas is overproducing insulin most of the time. There are other types of type 2 that don't work quite that well, but in general, that don't work quite in that way, but in general, your body overproduces insulin. So your muscle cells, liver cells, the cells that take in the blood glucose from this signal become resistant to the signal. Because it's always there, they start ignoring the signal, if you like. It's like somebody constantly chapping on your door. You would just get to the point where you would just ignore it. So, also, aside from that, the reason, so that balances blood sugars through that mechanism. Aside from that, it slows gastric emptying. So when you eat a meal, essentially you're fuller for longer. Another effect it has is, when you eat a meal, your body will produce GLP1 and tell your brain that to stop eating. Well, once your brain gets that signal, GLP1, it's one of the satiety signals. So when you are stimulating that hormone by giving your body an exogenous, when you stimulate that hormone by taking these injections, your brain thinks you're already full. So when you go eat a meal, your brain thinks you're full, and you get away with eating less, and the food does you longer because it slows digestion as well. So that is how they work on weight loss. They essentially induce what's called anorexic effects, and they help control your appetite massively. For people that are constantly food aware, constantly that food plays on their mind a lot and they're really impulsive about food, this is an absolute game changer, because it switches all that off in your mind and it allows you to be in control of what you're eating, rather than food and a obesogenic environment that we're in, food and adverts and being out and things. Rather than food controlling you, it gives you a bit of control back on being able to control what you actually put in your mouth. How many times did I say control there? So common ones are, as I say, Ozempic, Wegovy. Ozempic and Wegovy are both semaglutide, that's a chemical name for them. Mounjaro and Zepbound are tirzepatide. Now, tirzepatide is a slightly newer peptide than semaglutide, so slightly newer than Ozempic and Wegovy, and it works on 2 receptors in the body as opposed to 1. So the studies do show that there is less side effects associated with it, purely because it's a newer version of a GLP1. There's less side effects associated with it, and there's more weight loss effects associated with it as well. So it's kind of a win-win. There is another one in development, retatrutide, but that works on 3 receptors. So that brings me to the point of the people that are stamping their feet about these and saying you shouldn't use them, at the end of the day, people need educated on these because they've been approved for weight loss and they're not going anywhere, and people will use them regardless of what other people's opinions are. So, in my eyes, there is a right way to use them and a wrong way to use them, just with everything else, the devil's in the dose. And if people were educated on lifestyle change and good nutrition, exercise, all these things that people should be doing anyway, alongside the use of that, it could potentially really change people's lives. The reason people are so reluctant to exercise and follow nutritious diet plans and things is not because of lack of trying. People have tried. People have tried time and time again, and oftentimes they fail. So I just see these peptides as a way of giving people a chance to get a kickstart at least at lifestyle change. So, side effects of GLP1s. The most common side effects are gastrointestinal side effects. So anything like heartburn, acid reflux, indigestion, even slight diarrhea and constipation. And that is generally the most common side effects. And in all the studies and anecdotally what I've seen is the nausea dies down over time. All these gastrointestinal symptoms dies down over time. I've been using it myself for the past 6 months, and I've stayed on a low dose the whole time, and I personally don't really get any stomach upset. At the start, I did a bit get a slight nausea and stuff, but I've never had any reflux and things, whereas other people do. But they are the most common side effects, and they do decrease over time, the longer you're on it. The interesting thing is, in the SURMOUNT-3 trial, I would have to go back and look at the amount of people. The SURMOUNT-3 trial is the biggest sort of study on Mounjaro, tirzepatide, that's been done. And most of the placebo group, the group that didn't get the drug, most of the placebo group experienced nausea as well. So that just goes to show how strong the placebo effect is. So if you go into this type of thing expecting certain side effects, then you might manifest these side effects. That is why there's placebo groups in these scientific trials, because the placebo effect is so strong. It's just very interesting that they experience nausea as well, simply because they thought they got the drug. That's interesting. So, less common side effects are hypoglycemia. Hypoglycemia is low blood sugar. Now, because they're anti-diabetic drugs and used for controlling blood sugars, there is a potential of falling out of a hypoglycemic state. So there is the potential. I'll start that again. So, because hypoglycemia is low blood sugar, and because these medicines are designed to treat high blood sugar, there is the potential that it could drive your blood sugar too low. So the way to mitigate that is to have regular small meals and try and keep your blood sugars balanced. It's not something I've experienced with it at all, but in around 5 to 10% of cases, it can happen. Now, I would probably say that's more to do with skipping meals, again, with the anorexic effects, with the appetite suppressing effects. It's probably more to do with not eating than the actual medication, but it is listed as a side effect. And pancreatitis is extremely rare. Pancreatitis is extremely rare side effect. It's less than 1%, but it is still something you should be aware of, because it is a listed side effect. Now, two of the main causes of pancreatitis are high blood triglycerides, so high levels of fat in your blood, and also alcohol, excess alcohol consumption. So it would be a good idea that the first few weeks on you should try to avoid alcohol, and you avoid fatty foods anyway, but you're kind of forced to avoid fatty foods because you don't, with the slowing of the digestion, fatty foods tend to upset your stomach slightly. And injection site reactions, 10 to 15%. of people will suffer injection site reactions. So how do you minimise the side effects? So as I keep saying to everybody, although I'm a fan of these peptides, I'm well aware that they can be detrimental if not used properly, and I am well aware that when people start getting into the higher doses, that this can cause what people are stamping their feet about. This can cause it to become almost like a quick fix because people stop eating, and that's where the nutrient deficiencies and things will happen. Then that's when people are reporting hair loss, things like that, extreme fatigue because they're not getting any energy for food, they're severely dehydrated because they're not getting any energy for food and probably not paying attention to other fluid intake, electrolyte intake and things like that as well. So although I'm a fan of these, I do believe you should use the lowest possible amount for the least possible time. So if you do fit the criteria to use them and you decide to use them, use the lowest amount until you get to where you could comfortably manage your weight and then come off. If you come off a lower amount, it's just going to be easier. It's going to be easier to get off them than if you're at a higher dose. There's less appetite suppression, they just control your cravings rather than completely remove your appetite. You could still eat, you could focus on nutritious food, and so you've got the best of both worlds there. So another thing is to stay hydrated. When you are on a lower calorie diet, which these will automatically induce, your body will excrete more fluid. So it's important to make sure the fluid's going in and even supplement with some electrolytes as well. As I just touched upon a minute, avoid high fat or greasy foods because with the way these peptides work, with the slowing of digestion, you will just give yourself an upset stomach because fat is the slowest digesting of the three macronutrients as it is. And if you then go and have really high fatty foods when you start using these, your digestion will be that slow that it'll just sit on your stomach and make you feel sick, make you feel ill. So focus all your meals on lean proteins, healthy vegetables and whole grains. Prioritise protein. Don't be scared of fat, but don't eat too much fat. And prioritise protein first. Protein first in every single mealtime. Don't avoid fat completely, but avoid really high fatty junk foods like chippy foods, pizzas, that type of thing. And another way to minimise the blood sugar side effects is, if you wanted, you could buy a blood sugar monitor and do the wee thumb prick test. You could do that first thing in the morning. I'll give you an idea of your blood sugar. Or you could do that 3 hours postprandial, which means 3 hours after you eat, which will give you an idea of where your blood sugars are. But to be honest, that's probably a stretch too far unless you're diabetic. You see bodybuilders going about the trendy, like, continuous blood glucose monitors on their arms and things like that. And to me, they're just a big fat waste of money. Unless you are diabetic, you don't need to keep a track of your blood sugars that closely, because peaks and troughs in your blood glucose daily as in response to food is a completely normal effect, normal metabolic effect. Now, with diabetics, what happens is when they eat, their blood sugar doesn't come back down. The blood sugar stays elevated. In the case of type 2 diabetes, it just stays elevated for longer and it has a slower time to come down. In the case of type 1 diabetics, when their blood sugar rises, they've got to keep an eye on their blood sugar, and then they inject insulin to keep themselves within a certain range. In terms of bodybuilders, it's just a fancy fashion accessory, really. There's not really any point whatsoever in my eyes. So, moving swiftly on. If you are in the category of needing these meds or wanting to use these meds, then I'm always saying to people, you need to approach this with the view of completely changing your lifestyle. it's not a case of using these it's not a case of using these as a substitute for a healthy lifestyle. Use these to try and help you get into the routine of a more healthy lifestyle, to use it as a guide towards a more healthy lifestyle rather than a crutch and starving yourself. Because when your hunger's signal, when you come off and your hunger signal, start again. Because when you come off and your hunger signaling returns, if you haven't ingrained new lifestyle habits, you will just go back to your old habits that got you overweight in the first place, and you will regain all the weight. Now that is fact. That is 100% what will happen. Now if you use these to help with your craving, to help dampen your appetite, to help you get a kickstart into your weight loss journey, while putting new nutrition habits into place, new lifestyle habits into place, getting regular walks, going to the gym or working out from the house, or even like I'm a large proponent of doing resistance training in general. I've lifted weights all my life, and I know a lot of people that are in the overweight category have a fear of going to the gym and a fear of resistance training. But even doing some circuit training in the house and things like that, bodyweight stuff, it's still resistance training. And my goal with everybody is to get people, whether they use GLP1s or not, is to get people exercising, eating well, managing their stress, sleeping well, and just overall changing their complete lifestyle around. So, in saying that, dietary changes. So, as I've already said, focus on nutrient-dense foods. Prioritise proteins, veg, fruits, and some grains here and there, some rice, potatoes, things like that. Potatoes are not grain, but some rice, oats, things like that. I've tried a few different dieting styles in my 6 months of being on this. And I definitely, I'm not saying this is for everybody, but I definitely do better on a very low carb diet. My mind's sharper, I feel better, I hold less water, I've got bothered with back injuries, I don't get as much joint pain, or I just generally feel better when I'm not eating carbs. And I know the science says when it comes to weight loss, it doesn't really matter when calories are created. I know it says that, but I genuinely think it's person dependent, and I tend to feel much better when I've not got carbs. I feel much mentally sharper, less joint pain, etc. But that's maybe not for everybody. So what I do with people is I try and find a way of dieting that suits you and your lifestyle, and it doesn't complicate your life, because when you're trying to completely change your lifestyle, you want things to complement your life, not complicate it. Sorry. So, resistance training, as I said, you should aim for 2 to 3 resistance training sessions a week. Now, when you're beginning, you could do that in the house with just body weight until your confidence grows, and then I would advise everybody to start trying to get to a gym, or group exercise classes or something, CrossFit. Find something you enjoy anyway. But overall, that should be in your plans for the future. When you go down this road, you should be thinking resistance training, cardiovascular training, and a healthy diet overall throughout your months and weeks on this. So you have to set realistic goals as well. Like, even though these will rapidly speed up your weight loss because it's so easy to stick to a calorie deficit, you still want to be realistic. And if you've got 5 stone to lose, give yourself 6 months, 8 months. Now that's far quicker than you would manage without these, but it's probably not as quick as some people think as well. I call it the slimming club effect. As people are conditioned to expect to lose 5, 6, 7 pounds week on week on week, I think it's maybe from going to slimming clubs in the past, where the first couple of weeks they'll get huge drops on the scale, and they'll get a wee clap and things for that, and I'll boost their self-esteem. And then when things slow down, they get made to feel like they're not doing enough because things slow down. Now, realistically, weight loss is generally a slow process. In the start, it will be faster, but it will naturally slow down. So you need to have realistic boundaries, especially if you're staying on a lower dosing. You have to still look at the long game. And in the beginning, your weight loss will be fast, but that will slow up, and you have to kind of try and emotionally detach yourself from the scale emotionally, because if you're constantly emotionally attached to the scale, it doesn't matter what these are doing for your appetite, it'll still cause binges based on emotion. So you have to try and work on that, your behaviour as well as your resistance training and nutrition as well. It kind of all goes together. There's no one way. It's not a case of just eat less, move more, like everybody fucking keeps saying. There's more to it than that. There's simply looking at it like that removes human psychology, and realistically that is where most people struggle to lose weight. It's the psychology, it's the emotional attachment to certain foods, emotional attachment to the scale, the reaction to the scale. If the scale's not in your way, you go a fuck out in the head weekend of going mad, and then you're back to square one. It's all these things you hate to try and sort of rein in and work on your behaviour as well. So that brings me to the end of what I wanted to discuss. So basically the key takeaways are GLP1s are powerful tools for weight loss and blood sugar control, but they're not a magic bullet as people are portraying them. They can be if you just remove your appetite, and if you're just concerned about seeing the number on the scale going down, then there will be a magic bullet for that short period of time. But you will 100% cause yourself some issues, whether that be severe muscle loss, whether that be bone density issues, whether that be setting yourself up for further eating disorder issues, like that will cause issues. There's no doubt in my mind. Hair loss, severe nutrient deficiencies, mineral deficiencies, like a ton of stuff could happen. And there's no doubt in my mind, if you are just taking these and starving yourself, that is what will happen. And that's, I suppose, what the fitness community are stamping their fight about. That's what they think these are. Now, when used properly, if you use these on the lower end of the dosing, or whatever dose you get to where you could comfortably eat, but it controls your cravings as well, that to me is the sweet spot. You need to be able to eat your food. You need to be able to eat enough food to make sure your body is nourished, but yet you need to use, if you decide to use these could be a great tool for you to help manage your calorie intake. And as I keep saying throughout, permanent lifestyle change must be at the forefront of your mind, and don't use these as an alternative to lifestyle change, because you will 100% you will set yourself up for issues in the future. Side effects are normally mild. There's normally no many side effects, and you can see that in the literature, what I've experienced myself and what I'm seeing with other people. They're generally very, very well tolerated. Now, there is the possibility of more serious side effects, but again, some of them I could only see happening at higher doses. At the lower end of the dosing scale, they seem to be very, very well tolerated. And for long-term success, it's got to be a complete lifestyle change. Complete change in your nutritional habits, complete change in your exercise habits, and a complete change in your behaviours and your thoughts around food. Around food and exercise, really. Now, if you're able to completely change all the things while this is working away in the background, helping you control your impulses, you are very likely to succeed. when you come off. Very, very likely to succeed when you come off. Now, if you don't do any of these things and you just use it as an appetite suppressant and you're just still you're still planning on just eating what you want and doing what you want, no training, no exercising when you come off, then you will inevitably set yourself up for nutrient deficiency, set yourself up for future illness, and you'll regain all the weight as well. So it's an absolute pointless exercise treating them like that. So anyway, I hope this episode was informative. I've got 10 episodes planned out about GLP1s. This was just really an overview of everything you sort of should consider before deciding to use them. Do I think everybody needs GLP1s to lose weight? Certainly do not. I think a lot of people could get to where they're going without them. But the stats in the country don't lie. 67% of the UK population is overweight, and the fitness community just keeps stamping their feet. Everybody should exercise. Now, I'm on board with that as well. I do believe that. But the people that habitually exercise, like myself and others, are in the minority. There's only 16% of the population have a gym membership, which is a tiny, tiny portion. Now, I think people in the fitness industry, if they work in gyms and etc., or they're in the gym all the time, they'll go into the gym, they'll see a busy gym, they'll think that is the world, when it's fucking not. It's nowhere near the world. The large proportion doesn't do that. Now, I see these as a way of helping people kickstart their journey into a more healthy lifestyle to then develop the habits later on, to give themselves more confidence in their abilities and more control over what they're eating, and then build on that confidence and get into the gym. So as I say, if you are approaching it, approach it with the view of completely changing your lifestyle. So, hope this was informative. Thank you very much, and I will see you in the next episode. Thank you, guys.